Welcome back. You're watching World Talks, and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. Poland's governing coalition has agreed on a political reset and cabinet reshuffle as it seeks to manage the fallout from its candidate's defeat in Sunday's presidential election. To many, the election of the opposition-backed Karol Nawrocki was viewed as a red card for the ruling coalition from Polish voters. To put an end to any speculations, Prime Minister Donald Tusk has announced a vote of confidence set to be held on June 10th and invited coalition partners to discuss the government's future. What are the possible scenarios? Now that will be a question for Jowanka Jakubek-Lalik, Associate Professor at the Faculty of Law and Administration at the University of Warsaw. Thank you so much for joining me back in the studio.
Thank you for inviting me.
So let's take a look at this coalition agreement. They agreed to a political reset, cabinet reshuffle, as a way to manage the fallout after the presidential election. What might we expect in days and weeks to come? What are we going to see when it comes to that announcement?
Well, I think it is very important also for the public to see that there is a new opening of the government, that there is some new quality proposed by the Prime Minister and the ministers. And I think that there are several possible scenarios when it comes to what will happen in next weeks. But for sure, the biggest challenge is to address what we have learned from the elections last Sunday, so that people are really dissatisfied with the government work so far, and they are expecting much better results than the ones that were before that. And also, I think that the government correctly addressed the problem of lack of communication or insufficient communication. So currently, they also plan to appoint the spokesperson for the government and also to really improve the communication policy, because this is actually one of the main reasons of the electoral defeat.
So you've mentioned this pledge of tighter cooperation, regular coordination, and better messaging, having a spokesperson also appointed to improve public messaging. Does this mean that the government has chances and is likely to serve full term? Because some experts pointed out that it might be something much bigger than just a simple reshuffle.
Well, in Polish constitutional and legal system, it is not that easy to dissolve the government. So what would need to happen in order to make also the earlier elections of the parliament would be not to pass the budgetary law, which is not very likely. Other than that, there needs to be a constructive vote of no confidence, meaning that there is another government proposed in place of this one, which would be able to secure the support of a majority of the parliament. So this provision in the constitutional system also means that the government is stable, and it is very likely that it will serve to the end of the term, unless something really spectacular happens.
Something major would have to happen.
Yes, but the biggest challenge for the government is, let's say, to be much more proactive, so to introduce new ideas, new possibilities of action, and definitely to convince the public, to convince the voters that they are capable of delivering results, because I think that this is one of the major problems and major criticism that was raised also during the discussions after last Sunday.
Obviously, in case of this government coalition is key, and we've heard from the Deputy Speaker of the Parliament, Włodzimierz Czarzasty, who said, quote, "This doesn't divide us, it unites us. We need to be ready. We don't want controversy. We all know it has to happen," end quote. Are they united? Are there any divisions as of now when it comes to the coalition? Are we to expect possibly some new names appearing on the political scene?
There are for sure many divisions within the ruling coalition. It consists of 4 parties actually, which have different agendas, different programs, and also different promises to the electorate. Some parts of the coalition are much more progressive, some parts of the coalition are much more conservative, so even issues like abortion or same-sex relationships is dividing the ruling coalition. But they need to make this effort to also address all those challenges internally, not externally, because also this is something that is very poorly perceived by the electorate, that the politicians are spending a lot of energy on fighting with each other instead of addressing the problems of the people. So this is something that the government would really need to focus now.
Definitely. So we've heard from the Speaker of the Polish Parliament, Szymon Hołownia, who announced that he would like to have a meeting with Prime Minister Donald Tusk on Monday and present a draft of his exposé on coalition partners. What do you think is going to happen on Monday, and what happens after Monday? Because we know that also on the 10th we will see the vote of confidence, unless something changes last minute.
Well, for sure, what needs to happen now is the agreement between the members of the coalition, and they need to agree not only about what they are planning to prioritize in the next months, but also how they are going to cooperate and how they are going to solve any internal conflicts, because they need to appear as a solid, unified force, also to convince the people that they are going to deliver the results, and also to address the problems that were highlighted during the electoral campaign. The electoral campaign also served as an opportunity, possibility for many politicians to really get closer to the electorate. They were traveling all around Poland, they were meeting a lot of people, and they were also hearing a lot of frustration and a lot of disappointment.
So not a defeat, but a wake-up call.
I think so, definitely. And depending on the activities that the government will take, also they could actually prove to the people that they are willing to listen and they are willing to learn from this defeat. So there are different scenarios. I think that first of all we need to also acknowledge that more than 10 million people voted for the liberal candidate, for Rafał Trzaskowski. It's a huge potential. So currently those people who are more central left oriented, they also need to have some offer delivered by the government. They cannot be left alone because with a marginal vote the other candidate won the election. So it is the big challenge to be addressed by the government, to really propose something to those people, and also
the beauty of democracy.
Yes.
Everyone having a choice.
That's true, but also we need to address the expectations of the people and their willingness to engage in public activities. And this is, I think, one of the biggest takeouts from what we have learned during last weeks, that the public wants to be invited to discuss most important public issues, and focusing on the public sphere, on NGOs, also on people who are engaged in solving public problems. This should be also the focus of the government.
You mentioned these two groups, and obviously each group has to have its own representative. We now have president-elect coming from one camp, and we have a government coming from the other as a coalition. Do you think there is a way to marry these two groups together, or at least try and get them closer when it comes to cooperation? Because as you mentioned, this is one country, and we all have the right to choose.
Well, and in the end of the day, we all need to be more or less satisfied with the work of the authorities that we elect, yes? The problem of Polish political system is that the president who has a popular mandate, so it's voted by the people, actually does not have so many significant powers when it comes to addressing the concerns of the people, because his powers are more blocking powers in the system of decision-making in the government and parliament. So the biggest challenge will be to form such a relationship between the government and the president, the newly elected president, to be able to fulfill the expectations of the electorate. So focus not on divisions, but on cooperation. It's going to be probably a challenge because the president, the newly elected president, he said on many occasions that he's actually not really interested in cooperating with the government, rather but overseeing or controlling the government. So this is going to be a challenge. However, on the other hand, the parliament is, there is no change in the parliament when it comes to the composition. So still the government is capable of agreeing and voting many important laws, and then the president will need to decide, and also the president is accountable to the public, so he would need to explain why he's disagreeing with some of the political ideas which are popular in the public.
How do you think Prime Minister Donald Tusk is going, and the coalition as a whole is going to try and address certain issues for Mr. Nawrocki to bridge these two camps together in order to find common solutions?
Well, the communication policy is #1 priority, I think, for the government, to be able to speak to the people in a way that they would be interested, and also they would understand what the government is all about, because that is the message that I think was to some extent missing in last months. On the other hand, also we need to think about who is going to be really in charge of this political conflict, because this is this is something that we need to expect. I'm not even sure that Prime Minister Tusk is going to be the center of managing of this conflict. Maybe it's also a good idea to include some other political figures.
Some other factions to take the pressure off the two
precisely. Because also what we have learned from the last election is that this is not only a division half and half, it's more than 1/3 of Poland is divided. So we have this duopoly of main parties, but they are gaining more or less 1/3 of the political support. And we have a growing number of people who are not willing to support either of those two main parties. So these are also the people who are important part of the society, and their concerns also need to be addressed.
A very, very interesting reshuffle when it comes to civil society and politics. We're having another group emerging and moving away from this duopoly. Thank you so much, Jowanka Jakubek-Lalik, Associate Professor at the Faculty of Law and Administration from the University of Warsaw. Lovely to have you in the studio as always.
My pleasure, likewise, thank you.
And so this would be all for now here on World Talks, but please do stay tuned. We're back in just a moment with more news and features, and we'll see you there.